All right, I'm here to talk about the rest of the card after the top three fights, starting with the first two cards on the first two fights on the main card. I'll start from the top one there. Lucia Pudilova took out Wu Yunan and took her out violently. Lucy Pudilova, she's always been a game fighter. She doesn't have the strength really to be a force on the ground, in my opinion. But she had enough to take out Wu Yanan here, and she showed maybe kind of like Luke Rockhold, I'd say, in a way, where Luke doesn't have the wrestling or the strength to impose his grappling game, his top game. And Lucia Pudilova, she may be in that same realm there as a fighter with her traits and whatever, but once she got on top of Wu Yanan, that was it. It was just total control, and she took her back and then sucked the life out of her and just flattened her out, and that was it. I knew once she finds an advantageous position, she'll put anyone away. She's a savage, Lucia Pudilova. And I don't mean like technically or whatever. There are fighters, I'm sure, with much better jiu-jitsu who would shrimp out and get their guard back and whatever. But with when Lucia Pudilova has control of you, she'll put you away with elbow. She's just a pure savage in a way that no one else is. Not any, Carla Esparza and whoever else. She's a savage. So that was awesome. Took out Wu Yanan, who this may be it for her. I think she's 1-5 in her last six or whatever. She's had some tough fights, close fights, but losing to a former whatever UFC fighter who was kicked out and now is making her return. This was a pivotal fight. I think Pudilova essentially took her spot here. So awesome win, violent finish, round two, in a fight that started off slow and I think may have been a little discouraging for the crowd. But man, once she secured that position, that was awesome. The crowd came alive for that one. Tyson Pedro took out Harry Hunsucker. Whatever. I don't know. I bet on Harry Hunsucker round one knockout, I'm not going to lie. And I thought this fight was at heavyweight up until last night. And I was like, oh, he made the cut. And he lost like 50 fucking pounds or whatever. But still, was it meant to be? He's, Tyson Pedro was the bigger, stronger guy with much better striking. And he hurt him with a jab, I think, or whatever. And then just a few seconds later, that front kick. Whew, that was awesome. That was fucking awesome. Tyson Pedro, you got to beat somebody better, to be honest, than Ike Villanueva, whoever he beat last time, and Harry Hunsucker. But still, what more can you ask for when it's a guy that's such a significant favorite than putting these guys away in round one? So he did what we asked of him and gave us some nice violence in the first fight of the pay-per-view. Last fight of the prelims, Romanov and Tybura. That fight was, similar to how I expected it to go. But Romanov impressed me with his cardio and being able to lose 10 minutes of a fight after winning 5 minutes of a fight, just to speak bluntly. But other than that, it was the Tybura show after that round one, which round one was close to being a 10-8. I didn't think it was a 10-8, but, it occurred to me while the fight was happening that it could have been. It was, there was some precarious ground and pound there. And Tabora, look, he's a big, strong, 260-pound whatever. He's tough to wrangle. And although he was tossed around like a pizza dough in the first round twice, which may have worked against Romanov, after that, he wasn't. He was able to move around. He was moving very well and striking well. Well, outstriking Romanov. And Romanov knew the wrestling was going to fail from that first shot in round two. And after that, I think he went into survival striking mode and found himself sitting comfortably on the losing end of a decision. And he still, made shit happen. He some spinning shit, and he still, worked, but he was never in the fight in those last two rounds. and never winning the fight in the last 2 rounds. And Tabora, look, he, much like Leon Edwards and whoever, he generally doesn't produce knockouts, especially at heavyweight. He should produce a lot more, but he knocked out that Victor Pesta guy or whatever, but he's not Mr. Knockout Artist, and he didn't need to be. This was, if he was going to win generally, it was losing round 1 and then winning in round 2, 3, or decision, and he was able to take those last 2 rounds pretty comfortably. It's fortunate that he didn't lose round 1 by 10-8, but still, great win for Tybura. He was a big underdog, and he worked hard for that one. Romanov still has a high ceiling, I want to say, and even in defeat, he impressed me in some regards. Just losing at heavyweight to a much more seasoned fighter and not being finished. Although, again, Tybura is not Mr. Finisher, and Romanov kind of fought not to lose, not to be finished after. So, whatever. It remains to be seen how, all of Romanov's traits, how they shake out. But Tybura we know as a fighter, and this was a great victory for him. Next up, Jared Gordon versus Leonardo Santos. You know what happened when I watched this fight? These fucking morons came on my television called the Gronkowskis. And they were being Gronk, and you're Gronk, and whatever. I'm a Gronk, you're a Gronk. And then Dana White came and talked, and it was a fucking disaster. They ruined the fight. I still watched the fight, but I had to listen to all their horse shit. I know you're saying you could have just put it on mute. Whatever. You got me. But I didn't put it on mute. And I just listened to them talk about fucking whatever the fuck, some football shit. Yeah, so Goodell said to Terrell and whatever. And they paid no respect to that fight. I thought it was a disaster of a television segment where, especially for the UFC, I'm saying, you're going to have this big celebrity who is a celebrity because I don't give a good goddamn fuck about football, and I know his name. And this celebrity with his family or whoever the fuck that was, and they're going to be talking about your sport. You're going to have them on to watch your sport. Just, it wasn't done well. If you're going to have somebody on to watch a fight, they should know that fight. They should know the two fighters. They should know what they're watching. Instead, they were sitting down like a couple of casuals, That's what they looked like, casual football guys. Yeah, man, this fight sucks. Yeah, he's not trying or whatever, which I don't expect you to be like John Anik with the commentary, but you could tell that they didn't respect MMA. Even when there was one embarrassing moment where Dana, or the host said to him, yeah, you've been to fights, right? And Gronkowski says, yeah, I've been to a McGregor fight. And the host said, which McGregor fight? And Gronkowski was like, but Poirier. That's what he calls Poirier. And then the host was like, oh, which Poirier fight where he broke his ankle? And then Gronkowski was like, no, the first one. Oh, the first one. Yeah, the first one. You mean back at UFC 178? You went to Mighty Mouse versus Carriazo, did you? You fucking idiot. And then afterwards, like immediately after that, you could tell he was embarrassed because he didn't know the result of the Conor McGregor fight he went to go see. So he started talking, yeah, these guys are throwing. Started praising Jared Gordon for once. Yeah, Gordon, or whatever. They had some joke going on about Gordon. Anyway, great performance from fucking Gordon. I didn't enjoy fucking Christmas with the Cranks. Fucking Christmas with the Gronks. But great performance from Jared Gordon. Leonardo Santos, a guy with one of the best jiu-jitsu resumes in the UFC, in all time in the UFC. Tapped out GSP with a flying armbar. I can't wait to say that every time he fights, but you would never know from watching him fight. I feel so bad for him. He's such a good jiu-jitsu guy, and like Rockhold and whoever else, Pudalova and everybody else, that he doesn't possess the wrestling or the strength or any of the tactics, the means to get the fight to the ground and use his jiu-jitsu. It's a non-factor. His game is boxing. He's got some good hands. He's able to catch some fighters cold in round 1, Kevin Lee, Stevie Ray, whatever. But those days are gone now too. Leonardo Santos as a fighter, it's a shame what happened to him. And I know he's 52 years old, but, uh, he's not able to use every asset of his, barely any of his assets. Everybody else, maybe they can use 95 of their assets. He uses like 15% of him, 15% of his. All right, great win for Jared Gordon. That one I got wrong. I thought the fight would go under. And it's just Jared Gordon wasn't able to suck the life out of Leonardo Santos. And he wasn't able to hurt him on the feet. I'm sure those strikes hurt, but he didn't, he was just doing enough to scare him. And it was the Jared Gordon show, but, the finish, although I thought it was likely, it just wasn't meant to be. Then Luis Saldana versus Sean Woodson. That was a draw. That was a weird fight. Saldana's an idiot. Let me just say that here. He's an idiot. He knocked Woodson down with a jab. Oh no, I don't know what he knocked him down with at first, but he knocked him down and then he walked away and started pointing to the mat and doing like this Nate Diaz, like showmanship thing instead of just fighting. Stop trying to be all fucking Instagram, new age douchebag. You're in the middle of a fight and you just knocked down the guy who's favored fucking 4-1 to beat you. And you need to pounce on him. Instead, he was doing his thing and whatever. And then Woodson got up and then he knocked him down again. And then he said, oh, I'll pounce on him now. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw an illegal knee to his fucking head. And that's what he did. And he was deducted a point. I would have deducted 4 points just for the, styling and profiling. But whatever. It was the Luis Saldana show. I got this one wrong. And I'm not sure how wrong I would have gotten it if Woodson wasn't compromised early in round 1. But he was compromised. And Woodson, I don't want to make it like, oh, it was a fluke, that the fact that he was hurt in round 1. No, I think I got a lot of things wrong about him as a fighter. And I do think he's more fragile, or he is particularly fragile, even. He's a guy who's got great knockout power, or not knockout power, great striking, and he's got some beautiful knockouts. But he's, he was dropped with a jab. I didn't like the way he looked taking strikes here. And this is a guy who's he's the only guy who's bigger than Saldana, let's put it that way. Saldana is one of the bigger guys in the weight class, and that could have been the difference. But he's a big, strong guy, and Sean Woodson looked fragile. And I've been waiting for those legs to be chopped up because he does have sticks for legs. But, man, that chin, I'm concerned about it moving forward. But he did impress me by going forward and, taking it on the chin for another 10 minutes, despite being what I thought was finished in round 1. If that was Pride, he would have been finished. He should have been DQ'd. He should have won via DQ is my point, because I thought the fight was over. But Saldana did, look like the much better fighter. Before the knockdown, after the knockdown, it was just the Saldana show. So that was a really cool surprise, but still a bit of a shit show. And he, squandered it in that first round with, not seizing on that opportunity. And that kind of foolishness and shit and whatever, I don't want, that's the type of thing you can rectify and you certainly should learn from, but that might just be a trait of his as a fighter, where he's a fucking idiot and whatever. Got to factor that into the odds. Next up, Anja Losa. I kept calling him Lusa. Losa takes out AJ Fletcher. This was an awesome fight. Awesome fight, for the first 2.5 minutes or whatever, 3-4 minutes, whatever. The first part of the first round, it was the AJ Fletcher show. He's a guy that's giving up 7 inches in reach, and he was landing tight, step-in lead elbows against a guy with 7-inch reach advantage, and every punch he threw was landing. AJ Fletcher looked like the much better striker, and Losa was taking it. He's tough guy, as I said, coming into this. That's one of the reasons I picked him, is he's tough. And at the end of round 1, before they even hit the mat or whatever, he rocked AJ Fletcher. He didn't really rock him, but he staggered him or whatever, made him stutter step, and then kind of took over that round. And it was the Losa show. And I thought round one, by the end of it, I found myself siding with Losa, although I bet on him, so I wasn't really sure. But really good first round. And AJ Fletcher, we've seen him on the tail end of two decisions here, on the losing end of two decisions against guys that are, you know, if not, I don't want to say they're good knockout artists, Angelosa and Semmelsberg, even though Semmelsberger's got some nice knockouts, but they're definitely big, powerful guys. And Fletcher impressed me with his ability to take it, in every valley of this fight, because there were peaks and valleys on his end, on both ends. But second round, it was the Losa show, I thought. And then AJ Fletcher took over the fight. Losa was winning the early part of round two. And then I think it was the middle of round two, AJ Fletcher landed a big, I think, 1-2 on Losa and rocked him and swarmed him. And for Losa took so much in that, where I was sure the fight was going to be finished. He was staggering and then grasping for takedowns, and he was desperate and getting smashed. And he somehow survived that. And AJ Fletcher's a guy that the majority of his wins are finishes. He's a finisher. But Losa was able to survive that, and then that gassed AJ Fletcher out. And I thought for the rest of the fight, he was done. He really was. That was in the middle of round two. And then the end of round two, I forget what happened, but Losa took over in the end of round two, got on top, I think. And by round three, Fletcher was gassed, and it was the Losa show. And Losa, look, he may have played it safe or whatever, but at that point, who could blame him? There were such big momentum shifts in both rounds. Both these guys had the ability to hurt each other, and Losa was fresher, in round three, and had a distinct grappling advantage, I thought, wrestling advantage. And he made it work for him and just kept top control. And really good win for Angelosa. Really good win. And not a bad loss for Fletcher. Fletcher's a guy where now, he's got two losses in his two UFC fights. I still want to see him around. He's got a lot of potential. I don't know about his reach and whatever, his weight class he's going to end up settling in, or maybe this is just it for him. If that's the case, he's always going to be at a disadvantage reach-wise. That's just his build, maybe. But still, he's got a lot of really good traits as a fighter. Both these guys do. And in the end, it was Losa, just being the fresher guy, I think, having perhaps better cardio, but also his scrambling ability. He got on top when he needed to, rounds 2 and 3, and he's a well-rounded fighter with a good tank, and he can take it, as we've seen in his losses. So both those guys can take it. They've already suffered two decisions each, two decision losses each to very good fighters in the UFC. UFC level guys. So good fight. That was a really good one. Next up, Amir Albazi takes out Francisco Figueiredo. Albazi's pretty good, I guess. Yeah, he's pretty good. Albazi's really well-rounded. I still was very impressed with him getting a submission victory over Figueiredo. Figueiredo is a guy that is well-rounded, and he's tough to put away, just on paper, if nothing else. And Albazi went through him like a knife through butter. That was a guy leveling up, and I don't know. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I can't wait to see him fight anybody important. He's not going to be fighting a contender anytime soon, but who knows where he's going to be in a year. Really cool win. Albazi's a guy who's got almost all finishes. I think he's got one decision or something. And this was a guy, Figueiredo, who, even though he may not be, he's definitely not his brother, but he knows every trick of the trade, and he's a versatile mixed martial artist, He's a guy who can take it from John Lineker and whoever else. And this was a next level thing. This wasn't like the Malcolm Gordon fight. This was a guy that was clearly better than him, and he stepped on his head and passed him by. They're in different realms now. But that's the kind of fight you need to have to find out where these guys are. And Albazi, his ceiling is way up there. So, great win for him. Arichi Lang takes out Jay Perrin. This was he won a decision, and it was a close fight. Really close fight, I thought. I thought Arichi Lang clearly won, but it doesn't mean it wasn't really close. And Jay Perrin only made it closer as the fight went on. He started finding a lot more success in round 3. Guy is tough, really tough. He was just a little undersized, and at least early on in the fight when they both had their cardio, Arichi Lang had sharper technique, much better counter shots, rocked him a few times with nice left hooks and uppercuts too. You know, Jay Perrin's the smaller guy looking to pin him against the cage. That's what you need to do, and that's what Arichi Lang did. And that was a really good fight. Really good, back and forth somewhat, but good fight. And Jay Perrin, although, you know, he's got 2 losses now, he hasn't looked bad inside either one of them. That guy looks like a UFC level fighter to me, you know. Still, though, if he's even given another fight, he's got to win it, because no matter how he looks, you can't keep losing. And then Victor Altamirano takes out Daniel Lacerda da Silva. That fight went about how I thought it was going to go, and I thought it would take a little longer, but Daniel da Silva is a guy who every time you watch him lose, I think he's going to be finished. And to be honest, I think you're probably done watching him fight. So am I, meaning he's not going to be in the UFC. I'll watch that guy fight anybody, but I think, you know, if the UFC keeps him around for any reason, it's because he always produces a violent fight or an exciting fight, a finish. The only problem with that is he's always on the losing end of the finish. So, you know, at some point, the best fight the best here, he's going to be cut. I think this is that point. Altamirano, great victory for him. He's a guy who's, you know, much more of a point fighter on paper anyway. But he's established already in his few fights that he's UFC level. Guy's got good cardio, and he's a versatile fighter. And Daniel da Silva, he's a guy that I think proved in this fight that he doesn't belong here, to be honest. You know, these are guys that are very light fighters, light bantamweights or whatever, flyweights. I don't fucking know. I think they're flyweights. And you shouldn't be getting finished in round 1 like that, not the ground and pound, unless there's a serious heart issue. He's the flyweight version of Herbert Burns. And that was a still great fight to open up the card. Violence both ways. And a quick round 1 finish. Can't ask for more than that. So overall, I thought this was a really exciting night of fights. There was a lot of horse shit. And, you know, I always love the horse shit. But, yeah, if I had to give it overall a ranking, the whole card altogether, including Kamaru Usman and Luke versus Costa, I'd say it was like a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, and 5 of those points go to Luke versus Costa. Hope you guys enjoyed UFC 278. I'm going to make a video talking about some of the old school shit, I think, this week, because we don't have a UFC event coming up. But, yeah, I will talk to you soon. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that horseshit. And thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it.